brother, I cannot thank you enough for being here and taking part in this conversation and for all the work that you've been doing.
Oh, no doubt, man. Appreciate you as well. Yeah, no, really incredible work, man. One of the first questions I wanted to ask you was before I we get too deep into the book, could you provide a little background on yourself for those that are watching?
Yeah, definitely. I hail from Chicago, grew up on the South Side, in
No doubt.
Inglewood, and started writing poetry my senior year of high school, and been doing this going on 2 decades now. So that's the short of the long on me.
No doubt. Yeah, I'm also from Chicago, West Side though. Uh,
Oh
and
yeah,
also,
oh yeah.
yeah,
I know. I done my research.
yeah, there you go, there you go. But also an author too. Wrote Hair Love a couple years back, and still working in the space. So it's been really awesome to have this opportunity to talk to you. It's one of my first questions for you was just really how long did it take you to put this whole thing together, and how did it feel when you completed it? Just kind of knowing how arduous that writing process can be.
Yeah, it really, from the inception of the idea to now, it's been about 3 years or so, because in
Wow.
2019 is when I decided to start doing the Black Roses and Black Oak video odes. So that's how it started on the internet. I
Gotcha.
was writing these odes and recording them, and then the pandemic happened, and I got a literary agent, and we got a proposal together, and we got the book going, and
Nice.
sat there and wrote it, and here we are.
Nice. Having kind of worked in that online space and kind of using it to my advantage to try to help move forward a literary project, could you kind of talk about your process even with that? Was it kind of more like you doing these videos online and then it kind of caught the attention of a literary agent? Like, I'm sure people will be curious about how that part played out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, people are always curious about that part, man. It
Yeah.
took me, honestly, I was in conversation with an editor friend of mine for 5 years, and she had happened to see some of my work before, reached out, and we started conversation, and we were trying to steady work on something, and it just wasn't working. And then one day it clicked, and she was able to put me in contact with my literary agent, and that's really how it came about. So the videos were doing their own thing in a whole different, universe, and then the agent came from just a steady stream of conversation with an editor friend of mine for over 5 years.
I copy that. And obviously Chicago is just such a home to so many like incredible writers. Like, who are some of your early influences for this project?
For this project, I, really the people that I wrote about were the influences for the project. I was just so moved. Like the first person I did an ode for was Rhapsody, and
Hmm.
Eve had just dropped, and I remember how moved I was. Like her work always moves me, but like when you're a fan of somebody and you feel like when they put out something like, oh, this is gonna be the one to get everybody
Hmm.
on board, you know what I'm saying? And Eve felt like, right after Layla's wisdom, Eve felt like, okay, this is where she gets the Grammy, and this is where things,
Hmm.
move into another stratosphere. So I really wanted to throw her flowers, and her reaction to it, and us, becoming friends after that and all of that. It was just so beautiful the way it all kind of organically worked out. So everybody that I wrote about really was the influence for the project.
No doubt, no doubt. No, I love that. Um, and like one another big question I have for you is just like your writing style. Is so unique. Like, how would you describe your style?
I think, because I started my creative writing path, really started with writing raps, like when I was younger,
Hmm.
all the way into my high school years and things like that. And I really believe when you even read and listen to me now, there's such a musicality to my writing.
Hmm.
And I think it comes from that, and I was so moved in my high school years by HBO Def Poetry Jam,
Yeah.
and I remember watching and thinking like, wow, I can fuse hip hop with poetry. Like this is a
Hmm.
thing, you know what I'm saying? And I remember just thinking like, when I do this, I want people to feel moved like this. I don't want people to sit still and just listen. I
Yeah.
want this to feel like church, you know what I'm saying? And so that was a big part of my influence, once I started actually writing poetry.
Do you see like a big difference between rap and poetry?
No, like when I was younger, I thought they were like two totally different things. I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
people be rapping and then people be writing poetry. Like old dead white men be writing poetry. Like, what you mean? And then,
Right, right, right.
once I really got into it and paid more attention, I was like, oh, this is the exact same thing. Okay, I got it. I understand. So it's no difference.
No doubt, no doubt. With Hair Love, like it was really important for me to kind of highlight Black fathers, and in your work, you're really dedicating this specifically to influential Black men. And I was curious, like, how did you come to want to focus on that specifically?
I think one, I think is so in all the conversations that I'm having around this book and even thinking about the inception of it, I really wanted Black men to have the confidence and the tools to look each other in the eye and compliment each other and affirm each other and say to each other, I see you. Like it's one thing when you get it from outside sources, and that's a beautiful thing too. But I think that there's something very special about our kinship. And I've even noticed in the, just the publicity runs and every different thing that I'm doing with the book, how much this is needed, because I do it in my own friendships and I just want to see this spread, to the world. I think we deserve each other, and I think we deserve to look each other in the eye and say what we feel.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, and obviously you being from Chicago, Chicago tends to get a bit of a bad rap. You know what I'm saying? Like, are there any kind of lessons from your upbringing in Chicago that you feel like really kind of helped you with the influences of this book as well? Because I feel like Black Men in Chicago is just kind of
Oh,
it's like a different
absolutely.
connection and a different vibe. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. My upbringing definitely played a big role. Um, like even the way that I moved with my friends, like I
Right.
knew I always felt like safe and protected, and I felt like I was around the right people, and that really played a huge part in my success or like my ability to stay safe or my ability to be in the right places at the right time. And I knew that my homies was always looking out, and I knew that they were good guys, and that continued as I got older. And then just thinking about the moments and memories I had with the men close to me, like my dad, my granddad, and my uncles, and things of that nature. And Chicago can harden you, in
Mm-hmm.
a real way that like
Sure.
it's hard to like let things in. It's hard to drop your guard. And I have noticed that the way that I carry myself and the way that I've, been able to move through Chicago, navigate the streets of Chicago, but also still have a beautiful heart, it plays a part in the way that I'm received with people, and I just want to show, my brothers that, hey, you can be as manly as you want to be and all this other stuff. That don't stop you from seeing the beauty in this world and seeing the beauty in others.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Yeah, no, and really speaking to that too, I know the Oaks really speaks to a lot of different backgrounds as well, and obviously Chicago just has such a array of different kind of classes and different Black folks that are really in kind of every space kind of in the city. What's the importance of you kind of speaking to us being able to speak to all those different and occupy all those different spaces?
Yes, it's about 11 oaks in the book that have Chicago origins, and they're from all different, sectors of life. And I think that to me it's important, and it was important to diversify, the backgrounds of each of the oaks, because we as Black men come from all different,
Right.
shades, colors, forms, backgrounds, size of the tracks, and I wanted to be able to relate to so many different people, that pick up
Right.
this book and see not only the words but see the portraits and see themselves. And I think that that's highly important because even when we're talking about literate the literacy of it all, what I'm saying, like everybody not a reader,
Right.
everybody not gonna pick up the book, what I'm saying. There may be guys who pick it up, read it, and may have some homies that still outside of Rothschild's liquors, what I'm saying, doing their
Right.
thing, and they may engage in conversation. So I want to make sure that there is touching so many different people, because so many different people have their own circles and their own orbits that they touch too.
Yep. Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, and I was also going to ask you, what did you hope that your readers would resonate really with this book the most, and kind of why? Like, I'm kind of getting the vibe a little bit. Like, do you see this as a work that's kind of specifically for Black men, or do you feel like people from all different backgrounds could kind of learn something from it?
No, it's universal to me. Like there, I think, but there's tiers to it. I think there's
There you
kind
go.
of a hierarchy to some degree of how I want this to kind of play out. Like first and foremost, I want Black men to see themselves in this and see the opportunity to communicate more in a more crystallized way with each other. I think that's highly important. I think that the friendship, the fatherhood, all these different things that kind of continue to pop up throughout the book, I want those things to really bubble to the surface for the universe. I want people to be able to, even if you've never been around or, in very scarce a degree, been around Black people, I want you to be able to pick up this book and still, this book should still be some type of a mirror, some type of a portal,
Yeah.
And I think on a very like surface level, you see this book in a bookstore or you see this book displayed, then Black people exist in these spaces, right? They're taking
Right.
up space, and that's a beautiful thing, because I think one of the things I keep talking about with, because people always want to know, like, why do you decide to just talk about Black people in the present? And that's so important to me because I think there's a certain strategy to making a people feel like their greatest is behind them, right? So if we're only talking about
Right.
Black history, that means that things are not happening right here and now, and
Right.
that makes you feel like there is no hope. That's a hopeless existence. So it's so important that people see Black people being amazing right now. Like
Yeah.
that's a very interesting and to me revolutionary concept in and of itself, because we have Black history. We're doing a decent job of creating Black future talk, but let's also not forget that we are here right now.
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. Yeah, I mean, and that's definitely something that I kind of saw and experienced even with Hair Love. It's like you tell a very specific story, but because the themes and themes of life, like in love and friendship and kind of wanting to do right by your kids and things, are so universal. What ends up happening is like all groups end up kind of being able to speak to it and pick things up. And I think really in the book world, like the important thing too is like not just to only read stuff about your own culture. You know what I mean? That's how you kind of get a very limited and kind of narrow scope of the
Right,
world. You know what I'm
right,
saying? Like I think that's why mainstream media, it's important to like look at all kinds of
right.
things and kind of learn
Mhm.
from all kinds of different backgrounds. And I think your book really did a good job of telling a specific but also a universal story. Um, and one thing I wanted to ask you about as well is just like to get a little bit more
I
specific in the book
appreciate
is
that.
like, yeah, no doubt, no doubt. What oak would I say? What I wanted to ask you, do you kind of hold in the highest regard?
Man, I'm gonna be honest, all of them. Like I wouldn't have
Love it.
wrote about them if I didn't. Like I
Hmm.
have, obviously there's very special connections in there. Like my
Hmm.
dad is in there, my granddad, like three of my best homies are in there. But like in all honesty, man, like each one of you all I hold in such a high regard. Like I had to, and I called, my research for each oak. I called it sitting with them. So I would sit with y'all for a whole day, just try and find any interview, any podcast, any article, any just any asset that I could get my hands on, and really try to find those special parts of you that are not just also talked about every turn of the corner. Those things that
Yeah,
make you special, and that to me allowed a better insight into who each one of these oaks were, and that grew that esteem for me, and I thought that's what made the regard, grow even more for me.
no doubt, no doubt. Um, and I was going to say, is there any let me see how to phrase this. Like, in terms of like the Oaks contribution to society, like, do you see any of them being a little bit more meaningful than others? You know what I mean? Like, or do you kind of feel like it's a thing where just depending on where you're at in life, you can kind of relate to certain ones better than others, you know?
Yeah, I think it is that the latter. I think it's where you're at in life. Um, it really depends. Like even when you think of people who are with such a claim as like a Tyler Perry, there may be people who regard like Jamal Bowman, with the same regard because maybe they're in the streets and they, had these conversations with them and they've done these different things that have directly impacted their life. So I think that
Yeah.
there is there are these degrees of separation, and not only separation but there's degrees of impact as well. So there are people who are directly connected to some of these people and some of their work and some of these things that have affected them in a real way.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Um, and then the next question I have for you is kind of a little bit more specifically about identity. How do you see the intersection between representation and identity? Do you think one helps inform the other, or do you think they both kind of give to each other?
i think it's a I think it's a mixing pot, in all honesty, because even specifically with this book uh and with Black Roses, which is the female companion to it, they both open up with Black queer individuals. So Black Oak opens up with Billy Porter, right? And I think
Yep.
that that's such a beautiful one to open up with, because Billy Porter is probably one of the flyest people on the planet. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, I think that his identity is a representation of more than just a label, right? He
Right.
represents so much just through who he decides to identify as. You know what I'm saying? And I think
Mm-hmm.
that that in and of itself, it becomes this vice versa thing. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's a beautiful playoff. A nice little pick and roll that identity and representation have going on.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. You know, I also wanted to kind of ask you a little bit too about just what's the journey been like for you, like since you like released the book? You know what I'm saying? Like, because I know everybody always asks the question about like what's it like to write the book, but obviously trying to get a book like this out into the world is kind of a journey in all of itself. And I was kind of curious for you, like ever since the book has been out in the world, like what's that experience been like for you?
It's something new every day. It's been a beautiful experience. Like this right here would not have happened. You know what I'm saying? If I hadn't have wrote this book. Like seriously, like I was, telling my wife and my sister and stuff. We were so excited. I'm like, man, I'm gonna be talking with Matthew Cherry on Tuesday. You know what I'm saying? Like these are beautiful experiences that I
Yeah.
birthed out of this moment, and I think that that is something that I will never get back. Like these are things that I'm cherishing. Like just the other week, I was, in conversation with Jason Reynolds, who's on the cover of the book. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? Like these are things that I have this visual, dream board and all these things I want to accomplish and things like that. But to see these things actually checked off of a bucket list in real life in real time has been just amazing. And it's inspiring too, because every time something happens, it shows me like, oh, okay, that next thing that you want to see happen can happen too. Let's just keep pushing. Let's keep pushing,
Yeah.
and more beautiful conversations are going to come out of this.
No doubt. No doubt. And what I was also want to ask you just in terms of advice, right? So outside of like how you came about writing the book and everything else, just like people that kind of have an idea that they feel like is similar, not similar, but like hopefully similar in scope to how this is going to end up being remembered. Like, what advice do you have for somebody who kind of like has this idea? They're like trying to figure out how to get it out into the world. Like, they're kind of thinking about all the, like, I'm a big picture guy. So I'm thinking about, the book release. I'm thinking about, like grandkids reading it. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people don't think big picture like that. Like, what's it? What
Yeah.
advice would you kind of give like a young writer who has like a really good idea and something that's like really passionate and kind of burning in their spirit that they feel like they need to get out, but they don't really know how to begin?
I think, you know, one of the things that I've always been uh, that I've always subscribed to is keep pushing. Stay consistent,
Mm-hmm.
because you can have that big idea, you can have that big dream, and
Mm-hmm.
then that one little no sometimes deters people, and it's like, oh my god, the world doesn't want this because one person said no. And it's like, nah, you're gonna have a lot of no's, you're gonna have a lot of people that's gonna ignore you, you're gonna have a lot of situations where it just don't play out the way you thought it was gonna play out. But if you keep working in the midst of those, in between those yeses and nos, that's where you continue to refine your craft. Because if you're just sitting around waiting on a yes, then that was time wasted that you could have spent honing that craft that you're waiting on that yes for. So what's the point of the yes if the craft ain't
Right.
beautiful by the time it's given to you? You know what I'm saying? So my
Right.
my advice is always, while you waiting on that green light, man, keep driving, getting better and better.
No doubt. No doubt. No, love that, man. And and for the viewers who may have not had the chance to read the book yet, a question I wanted to ask for you is like, could you define what a black oak is and kind of touch on their importance in the community?
How I like to describe a black oak is a black man who has decided, through everything that the world throws at them, to stay rooted in their culture, in their community, in their family, in their friendships, any of those things, and the list goes on. A black man who has decided to stay rooted is a black oak. You know what I'm saying? And I think that as simple as it sounds, I think it has played a huge part in moving things forward for us, because I think there has been a lot of uprooting in our culture, and
Right.
in our communities. And when that uprooting happens, whether it is, by choice or by force, it throws off the forest. You know what I'm saying? So, Black Oak is dedicated to these black men who has decided, no matter what's going on, through the wildfires, through the drought, through all of it, they have stayed rooted.
No, I love that. Love that. Um, yeah, and I was going to also ask you. You kind of touched on this a little bit, but I want to ask it a little bit more directly. Like, obviously, there's so many things that you could write a book about, but like, why did you feel like it was very important that you talk on that specifically, and you wanted that to be the forefront of this work? Because, you know, a story like this, like, we've seen people attack this from different ways, but you're kind of speaking, like you said, when you spoke on Billy Porter earlier, you know what I mean? Some people may look at that as a little controversial, but I love that the way that you frame, like, the his contribution to society and kind of all that he's kind of done for the culture. Like, it feels like a more of a positive centering kind of certain black established men who have kind of rose, without throughout their ranks and everything. And I'm just kind of curious, like, why that specific angle on your book.
I think because it's like I was saying earlier. I think it's one thing when it comes from the outside world, but when your brother look you in the eye and tell you, "Hey, you're
Mm-hmm.
doing a great job, bro," like it got a different feeling to it. It hit a little different,
Yeah.
And I think there's so much barbershop talk out in the world, right?
Right.
Like everybody got an opinion, everybody got a platform to say something because of social media. So it's so different. We're no longer waiting on one source for our opinions anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody got an opportunity. And I think with me having a platform as an artist, and now an artist with a publishing deal, then it's my chance to amplify these positive images and these positive conversations. You know what I'm saying? Because even when with people like D Wade, who's in the book and saw his video old and things like that, we all know how the barbershop talk go with that type of stuff. Everybody got an opinion.
Yep.
Everybody got something negative to say. But we have to remember how important it is for our brothers to be rooted in their household. This brother is rooted in that house and ain't moving. You know what I'm saying? He
Right.
said, I don't care what y'all talking about. This is my child and I love my child. How can you not applaud that? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like those are beautiful things. We have a black trans man in the book. Like all of these lives exist and matter very distinctly. You know what I'm saying? And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's important to approach that as a black man, and even more specifically when we're talking about representation and identity, I am a black straight man with children and married and all of this other stuff, all of these, different roles and titles that could have me looking like, the barbershop talk guys. But I want to show you I look like this. I come from a certain background, and I'm still telling you this is how we should be talking to each other. And you can disagree if you want to, but at the end of the day, a book is a one-sided conversation. You know what I'm saying? So if you choose to engage, you just hear man.
There you go. There you go. And do you have any advice for kind of young people? Because, like I know social media is like obviously been fairly controversial. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times people's self-confidence is being kind of attacked. People are kind of coming at you for your looks or your opinions. And, it's like a lot of times it's like a very negative space. Like, do you have any opinions for like young people that are kind of like in the middle of trying to form what their identity is and kind of trying to figure out what type of, young person they want to be, like how to kind of navigate this space, kind of with your principles in mind?
Yeah, and I'm around youth a lot, man, and I tell kids all the time, like, you gotta one, I always try to tell them, like, as long as you can hold off from social media. You know what I'm saying? As long as you
Yeah.
can. I know that the urge be, but like it's really for a more developed mind. Like once you kind of know who you are and how you exist in this world, you can navigate those spaces better. But if you're on there, like to me, it's important to know who your real friends are and what the internet is. Like
Hmm.
everything that you think and everything that you feeling, you ain't got to tell because they don't have your best interests at heart.
Right.
Talk to your real folk. You know what I'm saying? And allow your identity to be built up and reinforced by those who love you. By the time you get over to that internet world, anything that's thrown at you and whatnot, you have a solid foundation that doesn't get shaken by every little rustling of the tree.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt, man. No, man, this has been a really awesome conversation, man. You definitely dropped some gems, and I hope people definitely make sure they write those down, and better yet, buy the book so they can have them in their household for
Absolutely.
years to come. But can't stress
Absolutely.
enough how much I love the book. And I also want to ask you: are you working on anything else now, and kind of what's coming up for you on the horizon?
Yeah. Yeah, man. So I have Black Roses and Black Oak came out this year, and then I have five children's books that'll be coming out over the course of the next couple of years or so. So,
Wow.
two board books, two picture books, and a middle age book. So yeah, it's a lot of exciting things that I'm really looking forward to, um, in the next few years. Like you'll be seeing more and more Harold Green works, man, and hopefully Harold Green and Matthew Cherry can get together and do something special.
No doubt. No doubt, man. No, man. Would love that, man. Definitely
But
want to thank all
before,
the book club. I'm sorry.
yeah,
Were you gonna say something?
absolutely.
Yeah, and I just wanted to make sure that we
Yeah,
thank
before
all
we
our book.
leave though, I got to do this.
Okay,
This
let me
is
know.
this is important. I want to do this. I want to read you your ode before we sign off. Okay,
Okay, let's do it.
Matthew, the normalizer. Ode to Matthew Cherry. What you chose to do with the light given to you speaks volumes, and you are at 16-inch subwoofer levels. We hear your light from miles away. Actions are so loud, and we see what you have to say. You make sure people are visible without putting yourself in the way, while putting in all the hard work to make it possible. You are worthy of ovation, but always seem to be the one giving it. The receiver turned quarterback, the way you put things in motion. This is for all those nights you were working and hoping. Thank you for putting it all in focus. A king on his proper throne, the director's chair, under the Crown Act, over the monkey paw. The world watched hair love, but black girls saw themselves through love's lens. The world saw you win, but black fathers saw themselves and knew it was okay to try, to love, to fail, and do it over and often. You normalize the relationship we all know exists, but is treated as myth. You have lived up to your name, Matthew. You are truly the gift.
Man, that's amazing, man. I need to put that on my voicemail. No, man, that means so much coming
Yeah.
from you,
And
man. You know,
congratulations, brother. I saw that you are expecting, man. You are going to be such an amazing father, man. Congratulations to you and yours.
thank you.
Like, man, please. I'm so excited for y'all.
Oh, thank you, man. You know, we're really excited too. Yeah, it's like you just got to try to do your best you can, right? And keep, like you said, keep working at it over and over again.
Always.
No doubt, no doubt. But no,
Absolutely.
man, but I really just want to thank you for your time, man. This was really amazing. Looking forward to obviously just continuing to read Black Oak, but then also continuing to read your future work that's coming out in the future. You know, we want to thank the book club members for joining and taking their time to read the book and engage within the app. And please feel free to post any follow up thoughts for the questions or for any of us in the literary app. So thank you for your time, brother, and talk to you guys later.